Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. It appears California Governor Gavin Newsom may survive the recall. Top contender Larry Elder vows for more battles to come. A good news for all healthcare workers in New York. A federal judge has blocked the state's vaccine mandate on health facility employees. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was grilled for the last 2 days over the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. For the first time, he gave an estimate of the number of green card holders stranded in the country. A new book accused the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, of secretly calling a CCP military official over the possibility of U.S. attacks. Though its authenticity is in question, has trust in Milley been eroded? Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. At the time we prepared the show for today, nearly 3/4 of the recall ballots for California Governor Gavin Newsom had been counted. About 64% of the votes said no to the recall and 36% said yes. Newsom is on track to survive the recall. In a late-night statement, Newsom touted no was not the only thing that was expressed last night. He claimed his administration said yes to science, vaccines, people's rights to vote, and abortion rights. Now, of course, Californians have their own judgment on Newsom's promise. Republicans had hoped that frustration over the months of pandemic lockdowns and small business closures would drive voters away from Democrats. The GOP won back 4 U.S. House seats last year, a success that gave Republican leaders hope for turning the state from the decades-long Democratic stronghold. The state has a number of problems that they were only aggravated when Newsom took office, including high crime rates, homelessness, unaffordable living, high taxes, wildfire problems, and many more. The impact of the grassroots effort to unseat him is not to be underestimated. The conservative voice in the Golden State is actually strong. Elder has already said he's prepared for another run. He told supporters on his radio program yesterday that he had become a political force in California and is not going to leave the stage. There will be more to come. A federal judge on Tuesday blocked New York State's vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. Before former Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned, he mandated healthcare employees be vaccinated as a condition to continue working. 17 medical health professionals filed an emergency lawsuit on Monday to block the mandate. The plaintiffs, including doctors and nurses, were facing termination and destruction of their careers unless they complied with the policy against their religious belief. All 17 are Christians who object to receiving vaccines using fetal cell line tissue in their testing and development. The healthcare employees argued the mandate violated the First and 14th Amendments and would nullify protection for sincere religious beliefs under the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The good news is Judge David Hurd sided with the healthcare workers. He blocked the mandate for not allowing exemptions based on religious beliefs. Hurd gave the state until September 22nd to respond to the lawsuit. A hearing will be held on September 28th to decide the fate of the mandate pending the outcome of the case. Religious freedom rights continue to be threatened in America amid the wave of vaccine mandates. In Nebraska, 4 female students sued Creighton University, a Jesuit Catholic institution, for refusing to grant them religious exemption. Creighton announced in July that all students must receive COVID-19 vaccines to return to school. Failing to show proof of vaccination by September 7th would result in not being enrolled. The university initially offered a medical exemption and a temporary exemption before the FDA approved the Pfizer shot. One of the plaintiffs, Lauren Remakers, president of the campus group Creighton Students for Life, was given a temporary exemption. But that exemption expired on the day of the FDA approval. Ironically, no religious exemptions were allowed by the Catholic school. In the lawsuit, the group of students claimed they had received arbitrary and disparate treatment because of their religious objection to the COVID-19 vaccination. Specifically, they argued the vaccines were developed or tested using aborted fetal cell line tissue. Remaker said in her affidavit that as part of her Catholic faith, she believes abortion is an intrinsic evil, and even remote cooperation with it would violate her conscience. She wrote, "The use of fetal tissue, fetal cells, or any product of abortion in the development or testing of a vaccine or any medical treatment is abhorrent to me. This is a sincerely held religious belief, which impacts my moral and ethical views of the world." The 4 students are currently banned from entering the campus or registering for fall classes, which prompted them to take legal action to return to campus. There's actually an ongoing debate within the Catholic community over the morality of COVID-19 vaccines. The Roman Curia, authority of the Roman Catholic Church, stated that vaccination is not a moral obligation and must be voluntary. It also told followers that if no, quote, ethical, irreproachable vaccines are available, it would be, quote, morally acceptable to receive the shots that use cell lines from aborted fetuses in research and production. This statement should very much concern you. The Roman Curia's guidance on moral values is depending on outside conditions rather than its own religious beliefs. According to this logic, the situation of no ethical, inapproachable vaccines would make vaccination morally acceptable. How wrong is this? When you talk about ethics, it already implies there are moral concerns. The left-leaning Atlantic admitted that hospitalization numbers are losing their meaning and might actually be misleading the public. The number of individuals hospitalized for COVID-19 recently jumped back to the figures from earlier this year. By looking at those reports, you may get the impression that, oh, there's another wave of coronavirus and hospitals are stressed by the COVID patients again. But the press cited a new study that said hospitalization numbers do not indicate the severity of the illness. While some patients require intensive care, that's far from the case of all of them who are hospitalized. In fact, some of the individuals are sent to hospitals for other reasons entirely. Only then they discover they happen to have the coronavirus as well. The study said nearly half of those hospitalized this year were admitted for reasons unrelated to the virus or had only mild symptoms of the disease. Interestingly, the study also notes unvaccinated patients in hospital have been showing less severe coronavirus symptoms. The study suggests updating the definition of COVID-19 hospitalizations to separate hospitalizations caused by SARS-CoV-2 versus cases associated with the detection of the virus. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was grilled at congressional hearings in the past 2 days for the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. Besides the hundreds of Americans left behind, at least several thousand green card holders are stranded in the country as well. Blinken also confirmed this at a hearing on Monday. However, up until today, the State Department has no reliable numbers of American citizens and permanent residents in Afghanistan.
We had about 100 American citizens in contact with us who seek to leave Afghanistan. Those are the Americans we're working with.
Do you have an exact number?
I can't give you an exact number. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. It's really a snapshot at any given moment because what happens is.
I asked you as of the last update you received.
Yeah, as of the last update, it was about 100.
Okay, how many green card holders?
Green card holders is something that we don't track directly. So what we've done is we've solicited people, if they are green card holders, to let us know. I think the best estimates are that there's several thousand green card holders in Afghanistan.
Wait a minute. This seems to be the first time we heard about the State Department talking about the green card holders. Why was this question not discussed during the evacuation? Or had the State Department actually avoided addressing this issue all along? Green card holders are legal permanent residents of America. They were promised that the United States is their permanent home. While the Biden administration leaves the border wide open, welcoming hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants coming to America each month, while the Democrats are planning their immigration reform measures that grant amnesty to millions of illegals in the country, they aren't worried about legal residents of America trapped in Afghanistan. It's fair to speculate that the administration didn't even try to get them out. Why had there been no mention of green card holders during the withdrawal? Blinken now says the State Department doesn't actually plan to track them. The best he could say was the green card holders are in the several thousands. 2,000? 9,000? There are several thousands, but that's a big difference. If the administration is sincere in getting these people out, they have to figure out how many they're going to help first. And coming up, who was actually targeted in a drone attack in Afghanistan? And a new book accuses General Milley of making secret calls, that's right, to the CCP. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like the video and share it across all your social media. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new video. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support. Okay, let's get back to the show. On Tuesday, Senator Rand Paul pressed Secretary of State Antony Blinken at a Senate hearing about the U.S. drone attack that was supposed to target an ISIS-K member. Paul asked, the guy the Biden administration droned, was he an aid worker or an ISIS-K operative. Blinken first said the administration is looking into the incident, so he couldn't speak to that. Paul pressed further. So you don't know or you won't tell us? Blinken said he didn't know. On August 29th, the U.S. military conducted a drone strike against a suspected ISIS-K operative. It came after the terrorist attack reported by ISIS-K near the Kabul airport that tragically killed 13 U.S. service members and nearly 200 Afghan civilians. However, according to a New York Times report, the attack mistakenly targeted an aid worker named Zamari Ahmadi. Instead, the airstrike killed 9 of Ahmadi's family members, including 7 children. Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley described the drone strike as a righteous one. He said on September 1st, quote, "We had very good intelligence that ISIS-K was preparing a specific type vehicle at a specific type location. The military believed the suspect was packing the car with explosives for another terror attack. But footage obtained by the New York Times suggests otherwise. Ahmadi was reportedly loading water containers for his home. The Biden administration still has not confirmed the identity of the target. As Blinken said, they are still investigating it." Senator Paul argued they should have an investigation before launching a strike, not after. He said bombing innocent civilians by accident is not sending a message of strength to the enemy. In fact, careless drone attacks were a signature of the Obama administration. Paul has been a longtime critic over this. He reminded Blinken that the Obama administration droned hundreds and hundreds of people, and there is blowback to that. Paul said he had seen pictures of children killed in those attacks. If that's true, the U.S. may have created 100 or thousands of new potential terrorists by bombing the wrong people. Talking about General Mark Milley, his name made headlines yesterday. A new book titled Peril, written by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, is set to be released next week. Allegedly, Milley made 2 secret phone calls during the final months of former President Trump's term to CCP General Zuocheng. According to the book, the first call took place on October 30th, 2020, before Election Day. Milley called after he reviewed intelligence that suggested CCP officials believed the United States was planning an attack on China. Book excerpts in the Washington Post were, quote, "General Lee, I want to assure you that the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay. We are not going to attack or conduct any connect operations against you," end quote. The book also claimed Milley assured Lee that he would warn him in advance should America decide to attack. The second call allegedly took place on January 8th. Milley promised Lee, quote, "We are 100% steady. Everything's fine, but democracy can be sloppy sometimes," end quote. The book also claimed Milley called a secret meeting on January 8th with senior military leaders. During that meeting, Milley instructed military officials not to take orders from anyone unless he was involved. Woodward and Costa said Milley considered it an oath. If you remember, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi previously acknowledged speaking with Milley on January 8th about available precautions to prevent President Trump from engaging in military action. We cannot judge the authenticity of these excerpts. The timing of the revelation ahead of the book release is dubious too, but the former president weighed in. In a statement issued last night, Trump blasted Milley's failed leadership during the Afghanistan withdrawal. He said if the story about the phone call is true, Milley would be facing dire consequences. However, Trump then defined it as a fake news concocted by the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff and the 2 authors who allegedly write fiction instead of fact. Trump said the story about attacking China was made up out of thin air. He was also the only president in decades who didn't get America into a war. It is incredulous that under any circumstances, a U.S. military official would pledge to the CCP, the enemy of America, to alert them in the event of a U.S. attack. Not to mention the calls were allegedly made behind the president's back. By no means is the news favorable to Milley, particularly after his handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal. Trust in the top military leaders after the withdrawal has been broken. At least 2 senators on Tuesday called for his removal. In a letter to Biden yesterday, Senator Marco Rubio demanded Milley's immediate firing. He said the general contemplated a treasonous leak of classified information to the Chinese Communist Party in advance of a potential armed conflict with the CCP. Senator Rand Paul wrote yesterday, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff working to subvert the military chain of command and collude with China is exactly what we do not accept from military leaders in our country. He should be court-martialed if true. Couple that with his inept handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, it is clear General Milley is no longer fit to serve as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and should be removed immediately. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now, don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all, and I'll see you next time.